Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ambassador's Lounge. Crisis and peace in the Persian Gulf received a boost when today Iran's foreign minister announced that Iran was prepared to open Iran had opened the Strait of Hormuz. That was a big boost for the peace in the region, and that was acknowledged by by U.S. President Donald Trump, and he thanked Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, Islamabad talks collapsed because of fundamental mismatch. U.S. approached these talks believing that it had bombed Iran, it had weakened Iran, it had eliminated its political and military leadership, it had destroyed its military infrastructure, and therefore it was in a position to force Iran to come to terms, to negotiating table on the conditions of U.S. And which were nuclear restraint on nuclear program of Iran, the missile program, and opening the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has already opened the Strait of Hormuz. Iran believed that it had withstood the onslaught of Israel and the U.S., and it had not surrendered. Therefore, it expected the U.S. To recognize its right for enrichment, and it also wanted sanction relief and release of its frozen assets. Now, the talks may have failed to reach a settlement, but it kept the door open for future negotiations, and which could be held in Islamabad. Now, second round is expected soon, and it could be held in Islamabad, though no date has been confirmed. Now, simultaneously, in the Strait of Hormuz, the U.S. has embarked on or resorted to a policy of economic warfare. And the U.S. naval blockade is in effect. Now, this is despite the fact that Iran has opened the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. naval blockade still continues, and it is strangling the Iranian economy, which depends heavily on the export of hydrocarbons. According to estimates, Iran could be losing somewhere between $400 to $435 million every day. Now, for an economy which is struggling, this is choking. In the midst of all this storm, Pakistan's diplomacy is in a state of overdrive. Pakistan's Prime Minister has been visiting Saudi Arabia, he has been visiting Qatar, now he's in Turkey, and he has briefed the leaders there on the regional developments. The chief of defense forces, Field Marshal Asim Munir, was in Iran, and he still is in Iran, where he has met the top leadership of Iran, and he's trying to bridge the differences between Iran and Washington. And this decision of Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz has been taken, or was taken, during Field Marshal Asim Munir's visit to Iran and his interaction with his interlocutors there. Yet, even as this mediatory efforts are taking place, despite the concessions being made by Iran, the statements coming from U.S. leaders like Donald Trump or Pete Hegseth, and even now J.D. Vance, it's quite hostile, threatening Iran that it would face serious consequences if it did not agree to America's terms. So the atmosphere is still militarized, the atmosphere is still charged, and in this charged atmosphere, we have to see what are the possibilities of diplomacy. I have with me today to discuss various issues relating to recent developments, Ambassador Asif Durrani and Ambassador Riaz Bukhari. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Asif, coming to you first, mate. Just let me know, you have read the latest development, and that Iran has agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz. First of all, how do you view this decision? It's a big concession, don't you think?
Correct. I think, Imran, something positive has emerged since the last talks held in Islamabad, and There were some failures in the last talks, which Vice President J.D. Vance had announced. But now you see that about the nuclear issue, there are positive vibes. And I, for one, would in fact give credit to Iran because already they know it that since they had no plans of weaponizing their nuclear program, so for them giving concessions on a nuclear issue should not have been a problem. And I think they have, of course, haggled with those issues, which perhaps the United States wanted to, or perhaps wanted to force Iran to settle for an agreement. But I think those were the nuances. Iran has played with the nuances. Iran is very much aware of the limitations it has under the NPT. And also, while the United States may not subscribe to JCPOA, still it has been following those conditionalities put in the JCPOA, which other members have been subscribing to. So what I'm trying to say is that Iran and the United States, they may have taken the maximalist position, but they have also realized that continuous confrontation is not in their favor.
And what you were talking about JCPOA and the nuclear enrichment, well, JCPOA allowed Iran 3.67% of enrichment. So Iran has been stressing that it was not after nuclear weapon.
Correct.
Yet Americans insisted that yes, that you have to give us further concessions on nuclear program.
This is something bizarre, Imran, in my view.
I totally agree with you.
The reason is that Israel is a country and it's notorious for its clandestine nuclear activities.
It is.
It is an undeclared nuclear weapon state. And it has the cheeks to tell the world, to tell Iran, not to weaponize, quote unquote, its program, while Iran is not weaponizing its nuclear program. Iran is a signatory to NPT.
Exactly.
It's a signatory to JCPOA. And Iran has declared that its intention is not going nuclear because now the argument in Iran is also that nuclear weapons have not saved Israel, and it has also not saved the United States. So nuclear weapons are not a guarantee to save you. It is your threshold to endure pain which can win you the day and which has won the day for the Iranians.
I think there you have made a point there, Asif. It is the ability of a nation to withstand the pain, how resilient it is, only then that nation can emerge triumphant. Iran has showed that, or Iranian nation has shown that it is resilient. Despite the differences with the regime, the present regime,
correct,
they decided to stand behind the flag. They decided to support their government despite all these differences. When when U.S. and when Israel came to attack them.
Correct.
Riaz, coming to you. Donald Trump has been talking about the second round of talks, and there is and now especially there is an optimism everywhere. Do you think that keeping in view the hardened positions of the two sides, the mistrust and the public posturing, second round will happen soon?
Yeah. In fact, President Trump himself has announced that soon, he is looking forward even to participate himself in the second round. Whether it would be held in Islamabad or somewhere else, that has to be decided, but it is expected to be held in Islamabad. Now, the situation that, there is a mistrust of 47, 48 years between Iran and the United States. And it would take a lot of time to bridge, so that both sides should start trusting each other on the undertakings given to, or sharing whatever they have decided, and looking forward to the implementation. That is the one problematic issue. The other is obviously Asif has explained in detail the nuclear aspect of the negotiations which are being held even today, and notes are being exchanged between the two countries. But I think Iran is now politically, perhaps Iran has decided to enter into some agreement with the United States. That's why both sides are still negotiating. If you just look into the reports of the first round held in Islamabad, it appears that perhaps it was the United States or the Vice President of the United States who, left the negotiations.
That's
Otherwise, Iranian side was all willing to even close the negotiations in Islamabad during their first round. But now, since the agenda has been extended even to Lebanon and other areas where still conflict is ongoing, and Iran has made it very clear they want to sign a major framework agreement covering everything.
But Riaz, the Iranian foreign minister said that they were not expecting any agreement in the first round. What Iran came to the first round was with intentions of developing confidence and trust. You put them directly into a situation where they had to deal with nitty-gritties. Now, in JCPOA, it took almost 4 years, right, to decide to reach an agreement on that thing. And here you are giving them just 21 hours to reach an agreement, to sign a comprehensive deal. That was not workable, do you think?
You are right. When Iran came to Islamabad, their delegation came to Islamabad, they had already signed JCPOA before that. And then they held 2 rounds of negotiations with the United States alone, in Oman and in Geneva. So they had covered a lot of, the ground as far as the nuclear issue is concerned. So I think when they met in Islamabad, and they met for almost 24 hours or 22 hours, most of the things were, from the Iranian perspective, were settled. It was the Vice President of the United States who took time, according to the media reports, which are available, today. So I think now the ball is in the court of, the President Trump to decide.
There was a lack of genuine willingness on part of the U.S. delegation to come to some sort of agreement. There could have been a second round. There could have been a third round. Mr. J.D. Vance was, it seemed he was in a hurry to leave.
Agreement could not be reached in Islamabad because of, domestic issues which Washington was facing. The, different decision makers representing different, support bases within Washington's, power politics. So that was their internal issue. Why, according to media reports, again, I don't have the first-hand information, perhaps President Trump wanted to take credit for the final agreement which is to be agreed upon or signed between the two sides, so that he can then sell it domestically whenever the next round of elections are held over there.
Asif, how important was this deal on Lebanon, this ceasefire, in Iran giving concessions on Strait of Hormuz?
I think it was very important. It was Iran had made it conditional, because this so-called ceasefire, fortnight ceasefire, which will end on 21st April, and United States and Israel, they backed out that Lebanon is not part of it. While Iran said, and in fact, Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif also endorsed that this was part of the understanding about the ceasefire. So I think United States has accepted Iran's demand that you have to go for a ceasefire on.
Or was Mr. Trump under pressure to pressurize Bibi Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire so that he could reach a ceasefire or he could reach an agreement with Iran, permanent settlement with Iran, to bolster his own image within the country? I
think Iran played their card deftly, and they said, well, no compromise as far as Iran is concerned. And the United States saw merit in going for that and accepting Iran's demand. And you have seen that once the the ceasefire has come into effect, and as you said it in the introduction, that Iranian Foreign Minister also announced that they have opened the Strait of Hormuz because Iran made it conditional to complete ceasefire. So, and this ceasefire would continue till the time the deadline of the ceasefire ends and until it is extended. So I think Iran and United States, they have accommodated each other. And what Riaz has just said it, I think I would endorse it and add to that now United States, in fact, and especially President Trump, wants to boost the sagging popularity he has had in the country.
Sticking to this, Asif, now, more than 3 decades, there's been no contact between Lebanon and Israel. Now there is a contact. They have agreed to a ceasefire, 10-day ceasefire. What do you think they expect to achieve within these 10 days? Or would it be extended?
Imran, it is more related to Iran-U.S. talks. And it is actually dependent on President Trump's mood and President Trump's decision how to go about their future relationship with Iran. And whatever you are hearing through the diplomatic channels, through the media, and the way things are moving, it is that I think now United States and Iran, they have understood each other much better. Much better, why I say this? It started from after the signing of JCPOA, while Trump may have withdrawn from the agreement, but the subsequent Joe Biden administration, they were engaging Iran in nuclear talks. They have all the archival discussions which have taken place between Iran and United States. And they have found out some common grounds where they can reach to an understanding. And I think it would be a paradigm shift if Iran and United States, they agree to a peace agreement and Iran's assets are unfrozen, and then sanctions are there.
I'd like to stick for a moment with this Lebanon-Israel ceasefire. Now, an important aspect of it is disarming Hezbollah. And that's a tall order. First of all, Hezbollah would not want to do that. And then Iran would not want that, because if Hezbollah is completely disarmed, then Iran is losing completely on its proxies, one thing. Second thing is Iran's policy of forward defense, it becomes obsolete. And Iran would, the Hezbollah will not see it kindly that Iran has let them down, yes?
Yeah, you're right. It is not a question of just, Lebanese government talking to the Israeli side. There are other countries which are also involved.
Just first, sorry to interrupt you. Is Hezbollah on board as far as the ceasefire is concerned?
Yes. To some extent, not fully. But I wanted to make a point that it is not just Iran or Hezbollah which are active in Lebanon. There are other Gulf states like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE. They are also active in the domestic politics of Lebanon. So it is a larger picture, not just Hezbollah. There are other, actors as well within.
No, but those actors are not affiliated to Iran. Hezbollah is affiliated to
Hezbollah is. That's why Iranian side
disarming Hezbollah, that's a tall order. Will they agree to it?
That's why Iranian side is, pleading for a larger framework agreement covering all the actors. I don't know whether, the Hamas will also be covered in larger agreement or not. I don't have much information on it. Perhaps
Asif, do you have any say on this, mate?
Imran, I think Hezbollah and Iran are on the same page. And if Iran agrees with the United States, which means there would be certain guarantees for Hezbollah also, that it would not be further harmed. And with regard to disarming Hezbollah, I think it's a difficult question because of Lebanese politics. And Lebanon, you have seen, had passed through a very difficult period of civil war, and subsequently they struck a very delicate balance between Sunnis, Shias, and Christians. So right now, whatever you see, the dialogue which took place, while President On may, perhaps his liking would be for Israel and having better relations, but the Sunnis and Shias in Lebanon, which are quite a formidable force, they are maintaining the balance.
Now, you said that Iran and Hezbollah would be on the same page. Okay, and that if Iran agrees with President Trump. Now, there is another element here, and that is Bibi Netanyahu. It is reported that of late that Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Trump, they are not seeing everything eye to eye. They have certain differences, and Hezbollah is one. Israel views Hezbollah as an existential threat, and it would like to not only disarm it, it would like a very weak Hezbollah.
I think Israel has exaggerated Hezbollah's threat, and Americans.
It was forced to relocate its population in North
Israel. The reason
Israel.
is it was the Lebanese territory, not the Israeli territory, which Israel was occupying, and still Israel is occupying southern Lebanon. So here you have to make a distinction.
I'm talking about North Israel. It's because of the bombing of Hezbollah. It's not that I'm supporting it, but what I'm saying, I'm trying to bring in the Israeli point of view.
I think Iran's support was very much there.
Of course.
So if an agreement is reached between Iran and the United States, so it means everything would flow from that agreement, and which will have an impact on Hezbollah and Israel. Israel being influenced by the United States and Hezbollah being influenced by Iran. So it did not happen overnight.
Okay.
Because Iran built its proxies over a period of time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Riaz.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing about there. When Amal was there in Lebanon, and it was fighting against Israel, Iranian revolution was not there in Iran. So how Amal was fighting against Israel. So that means there is some internal domestic sport within Lebanon. That's why they were still resisting Israel's occupation of Lebanese.
You are very right, Riaz, because Lebanon's, then that concerns the Lebanon's politics.
Yeah. Right.
But when Iran created the Shia Crescent, beginning from Iraq to Syria to Lebanon, and ending up with Hamas.
Yeah.
So that was an actual threat to Israel.
Yes.
And Israel, for the past 2 years, have been able to decimate Hamas, Hezbollah, and then you have seen what happened in Syria.
Yes, okay.
No, you're right. Again, Palestinian camps were there in Lebanon.
They were.
And they were fighting against Israel's occupation.
But what happened?
I want to underline that no doubt Iranian factor is there. I'm not ruling it out. But there is internal resistance of Lebanese against.
I wouldn't say exactly Lebanese.
We should not rule it out.
I would add
I wouldn't say exactly Lebanese, because Lebanon is a mixture of a lot of things, a lot of communities.
Exactly.
And the government reflects that. Yeah, sorry.
What I'm trying to say is that Iran actually added impetus.
Exactly. That I agree.
To this struggle inside Lebanon,
Yeah.
whether it was Amal or it was Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Very right.
But
And it
now
was
Amal,
basically-
you don't hear about
Yeah.
much about
No,
Hamas.
it is no more there.
But Hezbollah is
The
very
Amal
much there.
militia is gone, yes. And it's also because Iran, and after the revolution, had devised its defense policy in such a way that they would form its forward
Axis of
defense.
resistance.
Uh,
Riaz, just staying with you. Now, Iran, as we just discussed, had agreed to open Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
Now, how far do you think it can go without compromising national security and regime survival?
I think as far as the regime survival is concerned, obviously, no government would like to leave, their hold on in the country by signing any agreement with a foreign power. So there is no question of, the change of regime in Iran, and that is even no more a demand.
No, I'm not talking about regime change. What my question is that how far they have compromised on one thing, they have agreed that, okay, Strait of Hormuz. There are also reports that Iran can accommodate U.S. demands as far as its nuclear program is concerned to a degree. Now, how far more? Because you see, U.S. demands are maximalist. So how far do you think Iran can go without compromising its national security, one thing, and for the regime to survive?
You are right. U.S. is changing the goalposts almost every week.
Every hour.
Putting new conditions. So it is up to the Iranian, regime or the government or the actors, whoever are there in Iran to look into their own national interests, how far they can adjust themselves pragmatically with the rest of the world.
Now, what if
They are under sanctions for a long time, right? And according to one assessment, they have suffered huge losses in this 40 days or 42 days war, more than $300 billion, or I don't know what amount it is. Now, their infrastructure has been damaged. Their nuclear project, whatever they have, it is now covered underground. So what they have left with is to negotiate skillfully and defend their whatever national purpose they have got now, to hold and preserve their assets and their nation.
Asif?
I fully agree. But at the same time, you can see that Iran's geography is its biggest strength, and which has been proven even during this war, that by choking Strait of Hormuz, in fact, it has made the United States breathless. Forget about Israel, because Israel does not have direct geographical contact with Iran. And again, here I want to underline, unfortunately, the Arab states, in fact, they looked the other way, or at least they connived with Israel, because Israel otherwise, geographically, could not have attacked Iran through its aircraft or through its missiles. The reason is that when our friends, they say that why did Iran attack the Gulf states while they were having American bases? Where would America hit? So Iran would hit its targets. So those bases became enemy territories, and then those airspaces which allowed Israeli missiles and aircraft to attack Iran, I think Iran was justified. We are talking about the war. We are not talking about peacetime, issues. We are not talking about a nominal dispute. It was war.
Okay, now Asif, U.S. naval blockade is still in place.
Yeah.
And the impact is direct. It is impacting Iran. It is losing $400 to $435 million a day. And for the Iranian economy, that's a lot. This is coercive diplomacy, which U.S. continues to play. Did this coercion by U.S. had a role in forcing Iran to concede on Strait of Hormuz?
I don't think so, because Iran has got much better leverage than the United States. And if United States has, quote unquote, blocked the whole Strait of Hormuz, so had it been able to allow the non-Iranian shipping to pass through his Strait of Hormuz? That's the biggest question. U.S. has not succeeded in that, which it claimed before.
US says
during the early week,
Central
first week
Command office states that they have successfully blocked the ships from.
Forget about.
No, you can't forget about it.
No.
They say that we have done it.
No, Hack said, listen, he may say anything, but the question is, they have not succeeded in defeating Iran.
Yes, that's another issue.
So that's the biggest question. United States has failed to make Iran to surrender.
Yeah, that's another issue. But here, staying with Strait of Hormuz, Riaz, China was taking about 80% of Iranian oil and using Strait of Hormuz, and that was 13% of China's needs. Now, that is blocked, and U.S., the Central Command has said that they will not allow, and Pete Hegseth said that they will not allow, and the Finance Secretary also said they would not allow Chinese ships to pass. Are they bringing China directly in this conflict?
No,
or is this conflict more about China than Iran?
If you just look into the statement by the Chinese spokesman, I think there are the indications that they have diversified sources of import of oil from different resources, and Russia is one of them. So they will start importing more from Russia. So it will not harm any the economic interests of Chinese. But again, the question is how far this blockade will impact Iranian imports. That is the big question.
Exports.
Imports.
Okay.
I'm talking imports. Obviously, they would not be able to export. That is there. But would they be able to get imports through their ports? That's the big question, because the U.S. Navy has already announced to search any ship intending to for a call at Iranian ports. So that is more problematic.
Okay, Asif. What tangible outcome can Pakistan realistically deliver? A ceasefire extension is one. A framework for talks, or something more substantial. I think I don't know whether it's correct or not, but I think that the Field Marshal had an important role in bringing about this Iranian decision on Strait of Hormuz.
I think Field Marshal has played his role, and he has played it very well. And I think Iranians have been quite accommodative to Pakistan's role. And they have the trust in Pakistan's mediation, and which Pakistan, to its best abilities, and has played it, and it has been acknowledged internationally. United States has also acknowledged it. The reason is that when you look around in the region, it is only Pakistan which could have played this role because of the Iranian factor. Because Iran, when you look at Iran, you think that any other regional country could have played that role, or Iran had the trust. So it is the trust question which I think Pakistan fit into this question, and United States. And I think we are lucky to have the support of President Trump in Pakistan. And he likes our Prime Minister and our Field Marshal. And he has, I think, in a way, because he's a shrewd businessman, he has found out the qualities in our Field Marshal and the Prime Minister.
Qualities of?
That they can actually play the role to facilitate an agreement between Iran and the United States.
So now this brings me to the next question, Riaz. This crisis offered Pakistan will this crisis offer a long-term diplomatic opening in the region, or is this relevance temporary and situation-driven?
I don't think it is temporary or situation driven. The way our leadership is being received in the region, be it Iran or the Gulf countries. I mean, you can see how warmly they are received, and long negotiations are conducted bilaterally on the issues concerning the region as well as Pakistan. Just deposit of some funds by Saudi Arabia into State Bank of Pakistan is just one gesture. Again, we should look into a song released yesterday when our Chief of Defense Staff was in Tehran. And, such gestures help to strengthen bilateral relationship. And then we saw the news of ceasefire in Lebanon and opening of Strait of Hormuz during the presence of our Chief of Defense Staff.
Yeah.
So these are the things which indicate that there is strong relationship existing between the two countries.
So what sort of an architecture do you see, Asif?
I think Pakistan has played its role very well. It has been acknowledged internationally, not by the United States or Iran, but also by the European countries. And so much so that in India, Raghavan, who was the High Commissioner here in India, and also Ajay Basaria, who was the last High Commissioner, who, when we downgraded our relationship. And then their former Foreign Secretary, Madam Rao, they have actually acknowledged Pakistan's positive role in bringing down the temperatures. And in fact, we have indirectly also helped India, because India is also suffering badly with this war.
Okay, but my question is, how will this translate in future? Will we continue to remain relevant?
The question is, when you are respected, and when your credibility is established, when you were in fact internationally, your role was not acknowledged, but now it is being acknowledged. And when your neighbor considered that will make Pakistan irrelevant, and actually Pakistan has become
that
relevant.
Is situation driven.
What
I'm saying is, how do you think it would be in the future? How can we be relevant in the future? You are talking about
it is linked to the past. It is linked to whatever has been happening in the near past. So whatever has been happening, and when we were ridiculed, actually we proved otherwise. And this is what we are now. We are a reality. We are very much an actor in the stability of the region.
Okay.
Post Iran-U.S. conflict, I hope that a framework agreement is on the way. It would be, I'm quite optimistic that it will be signed during the last few days in Islamabad. So in post-conflict scenario, I see a Muslim Quad emerging in the region. Mm-hmm. That would be a key security structure, perhaps to counter I2U2.
Should we emphasize
I2U2
it?
I2U2 is basically economic.
But again, it has some security, in the Quad as well.
Just a second. Yeah.
But then Muslim Quad emerging, as we have seen, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, Pakistan, and if you add Iran as well into that, perhaps that would be, there to address the security concerns of the Muslim world against the state of Israel.
And Iran has to be part of any future security architecture. But how can Iran be part of it without winning the confidence of the GCC countries which it has bombed?
Imran, I think rather than going into Muslim or non-Muslim, Quad. I think now we should be enlightened enough to talk about peace and stability in the region. And when I say region, it means South Asia, Central Asia, and West Asia. And for that to happen, I think geographically it is Pakistan, it is Iran, it is Saudi Arabia, it is
Egypt, it is Turkey.
Egypt and Turkey.
Yeah.
Those are the big countries.
Yeah.
Other Gulf states are small countries, but affluent countries. And then India has, has chosen itself to be on the sidelines. It is up to India whether it wants to be the part of this greater geographical entity.
Well, Israel, Indian Foreign Minister Mr. Jaishankar was in UAE, and he had important discussions with the leadership there. Besides, he said in an interview that India has been invited to be a part of the coalition for the safe passage of in the Strait of Hormuz.
But now the Strait of Hormuz is open for everyone.
But you see, Strait of Hormuz may be open, but Iran has seen the power of blocking Strait of Hormuz, and it could be a permanent irritant in the region. Iran could use it whenever it wants, because Iran has now realized that. And what you gentlemen have said, that the future architecture, security architecture in particular, would and should involve Pakistan, should involve Turkey, Egypt, and the GCC countries. And that's exactly, Asif, what Mr. Jawad Zarif in his latest article in Foreign Affairs said, that UN, the permanent members, and the regional countries, including Pakistan, should be involved in any future security architecture for the region. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard our discussion. It's good omen that Iran has agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz. It would be a good gesture on part of the US if it reciprocates in the same manner and removes the naval blockade. The important thing at the moment is that Iran and US develop confidence building measures. They develop a trust, which is seriously lacking. The prospects for a second round of talks are now more than ever, and the time and the date has not been fixed. US and both the countries have a strong incentive to come back to the negotiating table to find a solution, because US is wary of being dragged or sucked into another prolonged conflict, and Iran realizes that sustained confrontation risks economic suffocation. There are a lot of still unresolved issues between the two countries, but I think diplomacy is working. Pakistan is playing a very active role, and hopefully these differences will be removed. Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump said that he would visit Pakistan to sign the final comprehensive agreement. We hope that time comes. We hope that President Donald Trump does visit Pakistan to sign the deal. That would be and that would ensure that peace will come to the region. Thank you for watching Ambassadors Lounge. Please subscribe to our channel, and we'll be back.